Audrey Jacobs, and I'm the VP of Business Development for our crowd, the Israel-based global equity crowdfunding platform for accredited investors only.
Hi, I'm Orna Shulman. I've been a private investor in high-tech in Israel since the mid-90s. Sold the first company that I co-founded in biotech in '96 to Kabal, and have continued with some successes and not so successes, but I think I pitched my wagon to a very good thing called our crowd.
So I wanted to have a member of our crowd. I won't say Orna is one of the smartest investors we have because there's many our crowd investors in the room, but she's definitely the most gorgeous. So, well, we want to start before we tell you a little bit about our crowd, we want to just touch a little bit about what's happening in the Israeli tech economy. Just as a show of hands, how many people in the room have actually ever been an angel investor or have invested in a private company, a startup, anywhere in the world? Okay, we have a few hands. So great. So we're looking for everyone around the world who has not had that opportunity before. But again, before we talk about our crowd, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in Israel and give you a brief update. Okay, so Orna, you want to start with Israel's power to astonish?
Yeah, let me just say that this PowerPoint is available to anybody afterwards. If you like it, you can come up and ask for a copy of this. We'll send it to you because we're going to go really fast. The GDP growth in Israel, as you see, has been quite stellar compared to the rest of the developed economy. One of the things that we say there is the startup nation is 20 years old. It's really more, but what we mean by that is that in the last 20 years, the innovation in technology and products have gone outwards because of globalization, because of capitalism now taking over Israel. It used to be a socialist and controlled economy, and because other venture capital has come into Israel. So for many different reasons, the last 20 years, and continues to be, a huge J curve of products, companies, technology, innovation, all of that combined. Next.
Okay. Great. So this is one of my favorite statistics and slides here. Israel beats all the comers in the job creation. Just want to go briefly. Just look at the slides here. This big fat blue line on the top is Israel in terms of job creation. Then it's China, Brazil. Then the gray line you can barely see is the Eurozone. And then this very paltry, sad line on the bottom is the US. So Israel's startup nation is building jobs in Israel and has an economic impact around the world. What you see when you go to Israel and what you feel there and the excitement is the rest of the world is there in Israel. And this is something that was just not talked about enough. There are 300 multinationals in Israel with boots on the ground, and 50% of the workforce in Israel is in these high-tech multinational centers. And so, again, looking here, just look at all of these logos here. Every single one of these major corporations has bought at least one Israeli startup between 2005 and 2013. Now, everybody here knows about Waze, and everybody uses it. If you don't, you need to download. Oh my God! If you have a car and you ever drive, you must download Waze, which is the best navigational app in the world that came out of Israel that Google recently bought for over $1 billion. But I want to tell you a quick story about Waze. So last March at the Israel Dealmaker Summit, which is another fabulous must-attend event in New York in March coming up, I had dinner with the CEO of Waze the night after he had said no to Facebook for $500 million. So I said, why? Why did you say no? He said, well, first, I think we're worth a little more. He said, but really, you want to know the truth? He said, the real reason is they wanted to wipe out Israel out of Waze. They wanted to eliminate the Israeli presence. And we are an Israeli company. And Google respected that, and Waze still has a very strong presence in Israel. And the next time Facebook bought a company in Israel, they didn't kick them out of Israel. So in terms of the fact that those multinationals are in Israel, you see the number of mergers and acquisitions, companies that are being bought. Last year, again, another, you look at the numbers, it continues to increase. 2012 was a little bit of a bump because Cisco bought NDS for $5 billion. But the average exit right now coming out of Israel is $83 million. It's the average price of an Israeli startup that's being bought by a multinational. So that's why a lot of investors want to be able to get in and invest early in Israeli startups. The startups are not just being bought, they're not just being acquired, they're also looking in terms of the NASDAQ again. Look at the number of companies that are on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, and look where Israel is compared to the rest of the world. It's incredibly impressive. So now we're going to jump over to our crowd. Our crowd is a way for you as an individual accredited investor to be a part of the startup nation and to invest in these Israeli startups. So what our crowd does is we offer the professionalism and the experience of a venture capital fund with the individual choice and flexibility of an angel investor. An angel investor is just an individual investor who wants to invest in a startup. But what it is, the pros of this is that in terms of being an individual investor, you get to choose the companies, you have low fees, you don't have to write $1 million check to a venture fund, and it's easy. But with a venture capital firm, they do all the legal, they protect your rights as an investor, and you're exposed to the best quality deals, companies, and they're fully diligenced and researched. But there's a lot of downsides. In angel investors, you can be washed out, and also with venture capital, you have to write a huge upfront check, and there's a lot of management fees. So our crowd allows a way for individual accredited investors around the world to invest in Israeli startups. It's founded by CEO and founder Jonathan Medved, who is one of Israel's most well-known and respected serial entrepreneurs and venture capitalists. And since February last year, we've raised $33 million for 30 companies, and 10 of those companies raised over $1 million. 85% of the companies we raised for are based in Israel. We have a very high quality of new deals and pipeline of startups, and we put our money in every deal first, like a traditional venture fund, and then we open it up to our investors from 53 countries to invest as little as $10,000 in each company. Right now, again, like I said, we have 3,000 accredited investors who are members, like Orna, from 53 countries. And the average investor invests about $100,000 because what we tell them is like it's, investing in an Israeli startup is like eating potato chips. You can't just do one. You really need to do at least 10 to spread your risk of return and potential reward. Our team is a team of experienced venture capitalists and venture bankers. We have an incredible team, and what we do is we use the crowd, like fabulous people like Orna, around the world to actually help build and crowd build our companies. So the great news is if you want to learn more about our crowd, next Thursday morning we have a breakfast in New York where we have 2 of our companies are going to be here, the CEOs of 2 Israeli companies, Sight Diagnostics, which is an optical blood diagnostics company, and also Visivo, which is a technology to transform the conference industry. They'll be here. You can see Orna. Give her your business card to get an invitation. I literally just came from JFK. I literally flew in from Israel. And after this, I'm going back to JFK to go start a road show in 5 different cities to take our CEOs on the road. But if you join our crowd, go to ourcrowd.com, look at the companies we have, review our research, invest alongside us, and our investing partner who joined this year, GE Capital, has joined us as one of our partners that we invested alongside all the other top VCs around the world. Once you invest, you build your startups and your portfolio, and you help them crowd build. The press has been very kind to us, and then I want Orna to talk about one of her favorite startups in her portfolio. How many do you have in your portfolio?
7 at this point.
Just 7? We've got to get you to 10.
Before I continue, I just wanted to add, to make a distinction that we heard about Indiegogo yesterday, which is a reward-based crowdfunding, and this is for accredited investors. It's for profit. It's equity. So it's a whole different paradigm. I'm going to talk about HiCon just briefly. HiCon is developed the first digital creasing and cutting machine, but it's based on 3D technology. It is co-founded by a CN of the printing industry in Israel, which is a very distinguished industry, Benny Landa, who also sold a previous company that he started to HP
For $800 million.
For $800 million, which seems like ages ago, but it wasn't that long ago. It was a decade ago. But as you know, Israel has always been on the cutting edge of digital and printing. So this has tackled a problem in the industry, which is the very long lead time it takes to cut and manufacture packaging. And they have come up with patented methods. They already have sales in it. $3 million, I think, was last year. and they are what we would call a disruptive technology for the mass printing industry, which is huge, $1 billion industry. So it came up. It was one of the portfolio companies that was vetted by our crowd. There are very significant other venture capital firms, both in Israel and outside Israel, that have invested in this company. The valuation was competitive, and the terms were very good, tag-along rights, et cetera, and it just made sense. So
wonderful. They did put the stop sign up, so we're going to use that one time. So go to ourcrowd.com to learn more about our incredible portfolio. We always have around 2 to 4 companies at a time actively raising. Come see us for an invitation to our breakfast in New York next week. Thank you for your time. Thank you to Consul General Ido, where are you, for the broadening the conversation, this amazing gathering, and these incredible people that are transforming how we look and speak about and think about Israel. Have a great day and talk to you.